Picture concentration so profound that hours dissolve into minutes and nothing can divert your attention. The identical three techniques surface in every Eastern tradition, from samurai warriors to Shaolin monks. Methods I discovered replicated across 200+ videos and synthesized into what I term Senshin-Do. By this video's conclusion, you'll understand precisely how to eliminate distractions and concentrate more deeply than you ever imagined possible. We'll explore 4 straightforward steps that generate this transformation, and everything begins with correcting the single mistake everyone commits. Part 1. The Ancient Trap, Shaku. There's a Buddhist teaching that states, what you grasp, you lose. The tighter you squeeze water, the faster it escapes your hands. This explains why concentration feels so challenging. We've been taught the incorrect approach. Contemplate it. When you need to concentrate, what's your instinct? Push harder. Force it. Fight through the distraction. Yet Eastern masters discovered 2,000 years ago that attachment to concentration actually destroys concentration. They labeled this shuchaku, destructive attachment. Here's what actually occurs. When you force concentration through willpower, your prefrontal cortex burns glucose like a rocket engine. Brain scans prove it. Within minutes, that brain region is depleted. Your concentration doesn't slowly fade. It crashes completely. A Zen master articulated it perfectly. The mind is like muddy water. Leave it alone and it clarifies itself. Stir it and it remains cloudy forever. The stirring is the problem, not the sediment. The forcing is what generates the chaos. This is why monks can meditate for 12 hours straight. They're not superhumans with infinite willpower. They discovered something we overlooked, that the war against distraction is won by not fighting. Sounds backwards. That's because it is. Contemplate quicksand. Every survival guide states the identical thing. Don't thrash. Spread out. Move slowly. Work with the physics. Fighting makes you sink faster. Concentration follows the identical law. The moment you fight for it, you generate the very resistance that destroys it. The samurai understood this profoundly before battle. They didn't pump themselves up or force concentration. They practiced what they termed no mind, a state where concentration happens naturally because there's no attachment to it, no forcing, just presence. The modern approach, every productivity hack, every concentration app, every timer, they're all based on force. And force generates resistance. It's simple physics. Push something and it pushes back. Your mind functions the identical way. Yet here's the beneficial news. Ancient masters found 3 practices that bypass force completely. 3 methods to build concentration that functions with your mind instead of against it. The first practice seems too simple to function, but that's precisely why it does. First practice, the fixed point. The ancient yogis gave one instruction that transformed everything. Fix your mind on one object like an arrow on its target. Not 10 things, not 5 things, one thing. They labeled this dharana, the practice of holding one point. Here's why this functions. Where forcing fails, your mind is like a monkey jumping between branches. You can't stop it from jumping. That's its nature. Yet you can give it one branch to return to, one home base. This is your anchor. Miyamoto Musashi, who never lost a duel in 60 fights, would stare at the tip of his blade for hours, just the tip. Nothing else existed. He stated this practice made his mind like the blade's tip, able to cut through anything. In battle, this concentration meant life or death. One scattered thought, and you're deceased. Buddhist monks use different anchors. Some count breaths, some repeat sacred words, some stare at candle flames, yet the principle never changes. One point, total commitment, like a mountain that doesn't move no matter how forcefully the wind blows. A samurai teacher explained it like this. In battle, the warrior who observes everything perceives nothing. The warrior who observes one thing perceives everything. Your attention is identical. Spread thin, it's useless. Concentrated on one point, it becomes a weapon. Here's what occurs in your brain. When you hold one point of concentration, your default mode network, the part that generates mental chatter, actually quiets down. Brain scans demonstrate activity shifting from scattered regions to one concentrated area. You're literally rewiring from chaos to clarity. The key isn't what you concentrate on, it's the practice of returning. Every time your mind drifts and you bring it back to your chosen point, you build mental muscle, like a swordsman practicing the identical cut 10,000 times until it's perfect. Pick your anchor based on your existence. If you function with your hands, make one specific movement your concentration point. If you write, choose one word to return to between thoughts. If you're in sales, pick one phrase that centers you before each call. The master's principle applied to your battlefield. Yet here's what the ancient texts warn about. One-pointed concentration alone becomes rigid, like a blade that's hard but brittle, strong until it shatters. Samurai discovered this in battle. Perfect concentration would break the moment something unexpected occurred. That's why they developed the second practice, something that keeps concentration strong yet flexible. Second practice, the deep flow. There's a Zen saying, be like water, present everywhere, attached nowhere. This is the difference between amateur concentration and master concentration. One is rigid, the other flows. Contemplate the last time you performed perfectly without trying. Maybe playing a sport, maybe in conversation, maybe at work. Everything clicked. Time disappeared. You weren't forcing anything. You were flowing. That's what the masters termed dhyana, meditative absorption. You experienced this before. Remember a time when you were so absorbed in something that you examined up and hours had passed. That wasn't you forcing concentration. That was your mind naturally entering flow state. The masters just learned to access it on command. Observe any elite boxer. The stiff fighter gets knocked out. The one who flows like water, untouchable. Ali termed it float like a butterfly. Bruce Lee stated be water. They discovered what ancient warriors knew. Rigidity is death. Flow is power. Here's the paradox most individuals miss. There are two types of concentration. Forced concentration, what beginners use. It functions for maybe an hour before burning out. Then there's earned concentration, what masters develop. It arrives after you've practiced forced concentration enough times that your mind learns to flow naturally. A samurai master explained it like this. The young warrior grips his blade so tight his hand shakes. The master holds it like a bird. Firm enough it won't escape. Loose enough it stays alive. Identical with your concentration. Death grip it, and it perishes. Hold it lightly, and it serves you forever. Contemplate driving. Remember when you first learned, white knuckles, rigid concentration, exhausted after 20 minutes. Now you can drive for hours in perfect concentration without effort. You're not attached to concentrating, you're just present. That's the transition from force to flow. This applies to everything in your existence. That presentation at work, stop death gripping every word. That difficult conversation, stop forcing every response. The tighter you hold, the worse you perform. The master's new performance originates from presence, not pressure. The difference between holding concentration and being held by concentration is everything. When you hold concentration, you control it. When concentration holds you, you're trapped. One is freedom, the other is prison. Most individuals are prisoners to their own concentration. Observe a master craftsman function, a sword maker at his forge. Hours pass like minutes. He's not forcing concentration. He's merged with the task. This isn't the tight concentration of a student. It's the deep absorption of someone who's transcended effort. This is what athletes term the zone, what musicians term the pocket, what warriors termed no mind. It's concentration without the struggle of concentrating, concentration without the effort of concentrating. You earn this by going through forced concentration so many times that your mind finally states enough and shifts into flow. The transition occurs like this. First, you force concentration and fail repeatedly. Your mind fights. Then one day something shifts. You stop fighting and it flowing, not because you surrendered, but because you finally comprehended the river was never your enemy. Yet here's the trap. Even perfect flow can be shattered. A samurai in deepest concentration could still be caught off guard by a shout. A craftsman absorbed in function can be jarred by interruption. Your flow state at work gets destroyed by one notification. Modern existence is designed to shatter flow. Open offices, constant messages, endless interruptions. You achieve deep concentration, then bang, someone taps your shoulder. Email notification, phone buzz. Your flow state perishes instantly. So you possess two pieces of the puzzle now. The fixed point gives you an anchor. The flow state lets you function without burning out. Yet they're both defenseless against real existence's chaos. That's why the masters develop one final element. Not to prevent interruption. That's impossible. Yet to transform interruption from your enemy into your training partner. The third practice, the guardian. There's an ancient warrior code. Guard the 1 in 10,000 things fall in line. This is Shugyo, the practice that transforms interruption from disaster into training. Contemplate it like this. You don't require perfect conditions to concentrate. You require a mental bodyguard that never sleeps. Something that brings you back the instant you drift, not in 5 minutes when you realize you've been scrolling. Instantly. The samurai developed this out of necessity. In battle, one moment of lost concentration meant death. They couldn't afford to drift for even a second, so they built what they termed zanshin, remaining mind. The part of awareness that stays vigilant even in deepest concentration. Here's how it functions. 3 steps that become one reflex. First, notice the moment you realize you've drifted. Most individuals take minutes or hours to notice. Masters notice in seconds. This isn't failure, it's the system functioning. Second, release. No drama, no self-attack. No, I'm so detrimental at concentrating. Just release, like dropping a hot coal. The Zen master stated, when you notice your thinking, that's enlightenment. The noticing is the practice. Third, return back to your anchor point from practice number 1, back to your flow state from practice number 2. Yet here's the key. You return without emotion, no frustration, no judgment, just mechanical return. Like a compass needle swinging back to north. Josh Waitzkin wrote about this in The Art of Learning as a chess prodigy. He couldn't practice because his sister played music in the adjacent room. Drove him insane. He'd storm out, demand quiet, beg his parents for perfect conditions. Sound familiar? Then his coach explained him the truth. If you can only concentrate in silence, you'll lose every tournament. Chess tournaments are chaos, coughing, shuffling, ticking clocks. So Waitzkin initiated practicing with the music. First he detested it, lost every game. Yet gradually something transformed. The interruptions became his training partners. Each time the music pulled his attention, he practiced the return. Notice, release, return, thousands of times until one day he realized the music was still playing, yet he hadn't heard it in an hour. This is what the masters knew. Perfect conditions make weak concentration. Chaos makes unbreakable concentration. A samurai who exclusively trained in quiet dojos perished in noisy battles. One who trained in chaos survived anything. This is different from modern productivity advice that states, eliminate all distractions. That's fantasy. Your coworker will interrupt, your phone will buzz, your mind will wander. The masters knew. You don't eliminate interruption, you master the return. Contemplate your daily reality. You're deep in function when someone calls your name. Most individuals require 5 minutes to return to concentration. With Shugyo, it's 5 seconds. Notice the interruption. Handle it if required. Return to depth. No emotional charge. No wasted energy. The ancient texts describe this like waves hitting a cliff. The cliff doesn't fight the waves, doesn't become angry at them, just stands solid while they crash and recede. Your concentration becomes that cliff. Interruptions hit and fall away while you remain. Here's what makes this powerful. It becomes automatic. At first, you consciously practice notice, release, return hundreds of times daily. Then something shifts. Your mind initiates doing it without you, like breathing, like blinking. The guardian activates itself. A Japanese proverb states, fall 7 times, stand 8 times. Yet here's what they don't explain you. The standing accelerates each time. First time takes minutes. 100th time takes seconds. 1000th time, you never fully fall. The guardian catches you mid-stums. Blee. This transforms everything about concentration. You stop requiring perfect conditions, stop waiting for quiet spaces, stop believing you require hours of uninterrupted time. With a trained guardian, you can concentrate in chaos. 3 seconds to depth every time. So now you possess all 3 elements. The fixed point gives you an anchor. The flow state lets you sustain without burning out. The guardian brings you back instantly when you drift. Yet here's what the masters discovered. These aren't 3 separate practices. They're 3 parts of one system that generates something extraordinary. Fixed point gives you the anchor. Deep flow lets you sustain without burning out. The guardian brings you back when you drift. Together they generate concentration that nothing can break. Here's why each part requires the others. The fixed point alone becomes rigid, strong yet brittle. Add deep flow and it becomes flexible yet vulnerable to interruption. Add the guardian and suddenly you possess something unstoppable. The fixed point is your blade. Deep flow is how you wield it. The guardian is your awareness that never drops. Samurai with just a blade perishes. One who flows yet possesses no anchor gets lost. One without a guardian gets ambushed. Together, invincible. Yet here's the warning. Once you develop this level of concentration, returning to scattered thinking feels like torture. Like a samurai returning to existence as a farmer. Your brain adapts to clarity and chaos becomes physically uncomfortable. You've been warned.